drug trafficker a couple of weeks ago. The president of Mexico has met with Barack Obama at the White House. For more, let's cross back now to Jane in Washington.
Thanks, Emmanuel. Jaime Zapata was shot dead in northern Mexico by a suspected drug cartel leader. The gun that was used had been smuggled in from the U.S. U.S. authorities say more than 60,000 American guns have been recovered in Mexico over the past 4 years. Drug violence has killed at least 34,000 Mexicans since Felipe Calderon took office in 2006. And according to the U.S. government, Mexican drug gangs earn between $13 and $48 billion a year from the United States. To fight the drug war, the Bush administration in 2008 pushed a plan known as the Merida Initiative. Now, this includes $1.4 billion worth of training and equipment for Mexican law enforcement. Here's what the two leaders said about the so-called drug war during a joint press conference following their meeting.
Whether they live in Texas or Tijuana, our people have a right to be safe in their communities. So we are continuing to speed up the delivery of equipment and training that our Mexican partners need to keep up this fight. As President Calderon cracks down on money laundering in Mexico, we're putting unprecedented pressure on cartels and their finances here in the United States.
In terms of the border, both President Obama and I agree that we must turn this area into the land of opportunities and not of conflict.
AlJazeera's Frank Contreras is in Mexico City. Frank, what was the response to Barack Obama taking some sort of responsibility in all of this?
Right. This is some of the talk that's going on with the two presidents meeting in Washington today on Thursday. Mexicans are watching this very carefully, Jane. And one of the key issues here is this issue of guns, whether or not U.S. agents should be allowed to carry weapons inside Mexico specifically. And of course, Mexicans really do not like that idea. You can imagine anywhere in the world, nobody wants to see foreign agents armed on their own land soil. And so this is an issue. The Mexican president today telling Barack Obama that that's simply not going to be allowed. And then Mr. Obama mentioning that there's the Second Amendment of the U.S. Constitution, and he honors that amendment. It has to do with the right to carry arms. And he says that's probably going to limit the government's ability to curb the flow of illegal guns coming into Mexico. And so this is a major issue. It's the issue that's completely connected. Drugs flowing north, guns flowing south. The Mexicans would like to see something done on that. But there's still this tone of joint responsibility that's going to take place here. So this is one of the main achievements that took place in this meeting. There was one other important thing that happened, an agreement now between the two presidents to end a 20-year ban on Mexican trucks. Those trucks were supposed to be allowed to go into the United States. They were blocked under the North American Free Trade Agreement. And so there's now talk that if they are allowed to go back in, Mexico will then help out by lifting tariffs that it had put on $2 billion worth of U.S. goods. And so that's something that both presidents believe will be good for the economies in both these neighboring countries.
Okay, Frank Contreras, thanks for that update. Now, the U.S. says it's received recent signs that a former FBI agent who disappeared in March 2007 is being held in Southwest Asia. Robert Levinson went missing during a business trip to Iran's Kish Island. U.S. Secretary of State Hillary Clinton said in a statement, "We respectfully request the Iranian government to undertake humanitarian efforts to safely return and reunite Bob with his family." That's all from us here in Washington. Back to you in Doha.
Yeah, I looked at it online. Thank you, Jane. The men who were killed when an armed man boarded a bus carrying U.S. soldiers to one of the airport's terminals and opened fire. Prosecutors say they're now looking into what happened. From Frankfurt, AlJazeera's Nick Spicer reports.
The policemen are wary, but the airport looks back to normal. Only the newspapers on sale tell of what happened. Shots, screams, 2 dead, says the headline. The military personnel were shot dead here on Wednesday at Frankfurt Airport's Terminal 2 aboard a shuttle bus. A 21-year-old man of Kosovan origin was immediately arrested. He's thought to have lived here with his father, and family describes him as a devout Muslim. But in Kosovo, where many are grateful to the American military, the president and others described him as a disgrace.
We harshly condemn this incident. It shouldn't have happened. We will look into why this young man committed this crime. We strongly condemn this incident.
Our hearts go out to the family and friends of those airmen who were killed and wounded in yesterday's attack. We are working closely with the German authorities to fully investigate this incident. But despite this tragedy, we believe Germany is a safe place for our airmen and families to live and work.
American investigators say they suspect a religious or political motive, but whatever it was the first attack against American military personnel in Europe in many years. And it took place close to some of the biggest American bases on the continent, where troops rotate in and out of Afghanistan and Iraq. Nick Spicer, Al Jazeera, Frankfurt.
The empire of media tycoon Rupert Murdoch is set to grow after the British government approved News Corporation's $20 billion takeover bid for satellite television provider BSkyB. It already owns 39% of the company and 4 newspapers in the United Kingdom. But as a condition of the takeover, one of the channels must be made an independent company for competition reasons. The deal remains subject to an industry review. Stillborn baby has been brought back to life after doctors froze her body for 3 days. They fought to revive Ella Claxton for 25 minutes before using the pioneering technique, as Paul Brennan explains.
9-month-old Ella Claxton plays happily with her mother with no visible ill effects from what was a traumatic birth. Her mother's placenta had ruptured. It took doctors 25 minutes to get Ella's heart beating. And even then, it looked like the baby would be left brain damaged. Ella, they decided, would have to go to a specialist unit 50 kilometres away in Cambridge.
I didn't know what was going to happen, and they explained about this cooling treatment, that they were going to wrap her up and she was going to be cold for 72 hours, and we didn't know what the outcomes were going to be, but it was a matter of taking time by time, bit by bit.
Ella's body temperature was cooled from 37 degrees to just 33.5 degrees. After 72 hours, her temperature was carefully brought back to normal. The brain damage, which would have been inevitable, had been prevented. The technique was finally passed as safe by the UK's clinical watchdog in May last year, after years of dedicated research by this man and his colleagues at Imperial College London.
About 20 years of experimental studies led on to the clinical trials, which completed in about 2007. And since then, cooling has been introduced widely. Over 1,700 babies have benefited from cooling in the United Kingdom. And the chances of improving, of surviving without any brain injury have been increased by about 50% with this treatment.
And the news is spreading rapidly.
The work pioneered by the researchers here at Imperial College's Medical Sciences Centre involved cases from the UK, Hungary, Sweden, Finland and even Israel. But the benefits are now being felt worldwide, as far afield as America and Australia.
Inevitably, more research is always needed. The UK remains the only country with a national register of babies treated this way. Keeping track of the future development of children like Ella Claxton will be crucial in further understanding the brain's ability to heal. Paul Brennan, Al Jazeera, London.
And that's all from London now. Time to rejoin Imran Gada in Doha.
Thanks for that, Stephen. Let's go to Egypt now, and another new prime minister.